They say a mother's love knows no bounds, but mine was about to be tested in the cruelest way imaginable. I'm Grace, born in 1965 in Detroit's East Side. Back in 2019, at my daughter Amara's wedding, she whispered words that shattered my heart into a million pieces. I felt invisible, worthless, but then something happened that would change everything. Today, at 58, sitting in my small apartment, I'm finally sharing this because every mother deserves respect, and sometimes the truth has a way of surfacing when you least expect it. If you're listening, drop your location below, and please like and subscribe to this story that needs to be heard. The morning of Amara's wedding dawned crisp and clear in October. I had spent months preparing for this day, saving every penny from my job at the local diner to buy a decent dress. Nothing fancy, just a simple navy blue outfit from Macy's that I thought would make me look presentable among all the wealthy guests. I had raised Amara alone after her father left when she was 3, working double shifts, skipping meals, doing whatever it took to give her opportunities I never had. As I approached the grand entrance of the Ritz-Carlton, my heart swelled with pride. My baby girl was marrying into one of Detroit's most prominent families. Marcus came from old money. His father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships, and his mother was some kind of socialite who organized charity galas. I had only met them twice, and both times I felt their polite but cold assessment of me. The single mother who cleaned tables for a living, Amara looked absolutely stunning in her custom Vera Wang gown, a cascade of silk and lace that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. But as I reached out to hug her before the ceremony, she stepped back, her eyes scanning the elegant guests mingling nearby. That's when she leaned close to my ear, her voice barely a whisper but sharp as a blade. "Don't tell anyone you're my mom." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stood there frozen, watching my daughter's face, cold, calculating, embarrassed. She continued in that same harsh whisper, "Just say you're a family friend if anyone asks. Marcus's family doesn't need to know about our situation. As if my 25 years of sacrifice, of choosing between paying rent or buying her school supplies, of working Christmas shifts so she could have presents under the tree, was something shameful to hide. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, to ask how the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms could look at me with such disdain. Instead, I nodded silently, swallowing the lump in my throat. What I didn't know was that Tommy Rodriguez, the wedding photographer, had been watching from across the floor. Tommy and I went way back. He lived 3 houses down from us when Amara was growing up, and his mother Maria was my closest friend. He had started his photography business just a few years ago, and somehow Amara had hired him without realizing our connection. Maybe she had forgotten about the skinny kid who used to play basketball with the neighborhood children, or maybe she simply didn't care enough to remember. Throughout the ceremony, I sat in the back row, far from the family section where I should have been. I watched strangers occupy the seats that should have been mine. Watched Amara's godmother Eleanor, a wealthy woman who had swooped into our lives when Amara turned 16, sit in the front row like she was the mother of the bride. Eleanor had always made it clear that she disapproved of my common background, and over the years, she had gradually inserted herself into Amara's life, paying for private school, college, and now apparently this wedding. During the reception, I tried to blend into the background, but Tommy kept appearing with his camera, capturing moments I thought no one was paying attention to. He photographed me when I quietly fixed Amara's train after she had stepped on it, tears streaming down my face as I knelt behind her. He captured the moment when I overheard Amara telling her bridesmaids, "Thank God I don't have to worry about my mother embarrassing me. She knows to keep her distance." The girls had laughed, not knowing I was standing just around the corner, my heart breaking all over again. But the worst moment came during the speeches. Eleanor stood up, elegant in her designer gown, and delivered a toast that made my blood run cold. "I want to thank Amara for allowing me the privilege of raising her like a real mother," she said, her voice carrying across the silent room. When I met this remarkable young woman, I knew she deserved every opportunity to flourish, and I'm so proud to have guided her into the woman she is today." The applause was thunderous. Amara beamed, raising her glass to Eleanor with genuine affection, the kind of look she used to give me when she was small. I sat there, invisible in my corner table, watching my daughter celebrate the woman who had essentially erased me from her success story. Tommy was there too, his camera clicking softly, documenting everything. As the evening wound down, I slipped out quietly, not bothering to say goodbye to the daughter who had made it clear I was an unwelcome presence at her happiest moment. I drove home to my small apartment, still wearing that navy blue dress, and cried until I had no tears left. I thought that was the end of it, that I would have to live with this humiliation forever, that my daughter was lost to me completely. I had no idea that Tommy had captured everything, and that the truth was about to surface in ways I never could have imagined. 3 days after the wedding, Tommy showed up at my apartment with his laptop and a grim expression. "Grace, you need to see this," he said, setting up his computer on my small kitchen table. What he showed me made my hands shake. Hours of footage that told the real story of that day. Every cruel moment, every dismissive gesture, every tear I thought I had hidden. But Tommy had also captured something else, Amara's true character on full display. The footage was devastating. There I was, kneeling behind my daughter, carefully arranging her train while she chatted with guests, completely ignoring my presence. The camera caught my face, the love, the pain, the desperate hope that maybe she would acknowledge me, just once. Then came the audio of her mocking me to her bridesmaids, calling me an embarrassment, laughing about how she had to manage me like a problem to be solved. But the most damning footage was Eleanor's speech, followed by Amara's response. Tommy had positioned himself perfectly to capture both women, and you could see the genuine warmth in Amara's eyes as she looked at Eleanor, the same warmth that used to be reserved for me. The contrast was stark and heartbreaking, but it was also undeniable proof of how completely my daughter had rewritten her history. "I can't let this stand," Tommy said quietly. "Maria raised me to respect my mother, no matter what." "This isn't right, Grace." That's when I remembered something about my own mother, Amara's grandmother, who lived in a senior community across town. Mama had been banned from the wedding because Amara claimed she was too local and would embarrass the family with her thick southern accent and simple ways. But Mama wasn't just any grandmother. She had connections from her 40 years working as a housekeeper for Detroit's elite families. She knew secrets, had relationships, and most importantly, she understood how social media worked better than most people half her age. I drove to Sunset Manor that evening, clutching a USB drive with Tommy's footage. Mama was in her small apartment, watching her evening shows, but when she saw my face, she knew something was wrong. I told her everything. The humiliation, the denial, the way Amara had erased both of us from her new life. Mama listened in silence, her weathered hands folded in her lap. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Baby girl, I've been cleaning up after rich folks' messes for decades. I know exactly how this works. These people care about one thing above all else, their reputation." What happened next was swift and surgical. Mama had a Facebook account with thousands of followers, former employers, their children who had grown up knowing her, community members who respected her decades of service. She also had connections to local news stations for families she had worked for. But most importantly, she understood the power of storytelling. She posted the video with a simple caption, "This is what happens when children forget where they come from." My granddaughter told her mother, my daughter who raised her alone, not to tell anyone she was her mom at her own wedding. The photographer caught it all. The response was immediate and explosive. Within hours, the video had hundreds of shares. By the next morning, it had thousands. Local news stations picked it up. The story spread across social media platforms like wildfire. A cautionary tale about ingratitude, class shame, and the cruelty children can inflict on the parents who sacrifice everything for them. The comments were brutal but justified. People shared their own stories of ungrateful children, of parents who had been cast aside when their kids moved up in the world. The video struck a nerve because everyone knew Grace, a hard-working parent who had been discarded when they became inconvenient. But the real damage came when Marcus's family saw the footage. His mother, Patricia Whitmore, called off their planned honeymoon trip to Europe. His father, a man who prided himself on family values and community respect, was reportedly furious. The video had exposed not just Amara's cruelty, but the shallow, materialistic values that had attracted her to their family in the first place. Marcus himself was devastated. According to mutual acquaintances, he had genuinely believed Amara was an orphan who had been raised by her godmother. Learning that she had a living mother whom she had deliberately hidden and humiliated shattered his image of the woman he had married. The man who had fallen in love with what he thought was a tragic but noble story discovered he had married someone capable of breathtaking cruelty toward the person who loved her most. The marriage lasted exactly 6 days. Marcus filed for annulment, citing fraud and misrepresentation. The Whitmore family, whose reputation in Detroit society was built on philanthropy and family values, couldn't be associated with someone who would treat their own mothers so callously. Eleanor, who had invested so much in creating Amara's new identity, quietly distanced herself as the scandal grew. Amara tried to control the damage, posting her own response claiming the video was taken out of context, that there were family issues people didn't understand. But the footage spoke for itself. You couldn't explain away the coldness in her voice, the casual cruelty of her words, or the genuine pain on my face as I knelt behind her, invisible and unwanted. The final blow came when several of Detroit's prominent families, including some of Eleanor's closest friends, began sharing the video with their own commentary about the importance of honoring one's parents. Amara found herself socially ostracized from the very circles she had worked so hard to enter. 2 weeks after her wedding, Amara showed up at my apartment, tears streaming down her face, begging for forgiveness. But some wounds cut too deep, and some lessons come too late. I looked at my daughter broken, humiliated, finally understanding the consequences of her choices, and felt something I never thought I would feel toward her. Indifference. Now you know how it feels to be invisible, I told her quietly, and closed the door. The video taught everyone who saw it a simple truth. Never be ashamed of those who sacrificed everything for you. Because one day, the truth might be caught on camera, and the whole world will see exactly who you really are. Moral lesson. Love fiercely protects those who nurture us. Gratitude honors sacrifice. Authentic relationships triumph over shallow appearances. Truth eventually surfaces, revealing character's depths.